The Chicago skyline glimmered faintly through a veil of early morning fog, its towering spires softened by the November chill. At 5 a.m., Division Street was still asleep, save for the warm glow spilling from Sabor Dulce, a small bakery tucked between a laundromat and a bodega. Inside, Elena Martinez, 38, moved with practiced grace, her hands kneading dough with a rhythm born of years in the kitchen. The air was thick with the scent of fresh empanadas, their golden crusts cooling on racks, and the sweet tang of tres leches cake soaking in its milky bath. Elena's dark hair was pulled into a loose bun, a flour-dusted apron tied over her jeans. Her brown eyes, sharp yet kind, flicked to the clock, 5:15 a.m. Another long day awaited, but this was her sanctuary. Sabor Dulce was more than a business. It was a dream forged from her childhood in Pilsen, a vibrant Chicago neighborhood where her single mother had stretched every dollar to keep food on the table. With a scholarship to culinary school and years as a pastry chef at a downtown hotel, Elena had clawed her way to this moment. Her own bakery, now named one of Chicago Tribune's top spots. Crowds lined up for her churros, crisp and dusted with cinnamon, and her flan, its caramel glaze a mirror of perfection. A soft giggle broke her focus. Sophia, her 10-year-old daughter, twirled into the kitchen, her black curls bouncing. She held a tray of cupcakes, each swirled with pastel frosting and dotted with tiny sugar flowers. "Look, Mama. Perfect, right?" Sophia's eyes sparkled with pride, her small hands steady despite the early hour. Elena's heart swelled, a warmth spreading through her chest. "Better than mine, Mija," she said, crouching to inspect the delicate handiwork. At 10, Sophia's talent seemed to outshine her years, her fingers nimble with a piping bag. Saturday mornings were their ritual, a pocket of joy amidst Elena's grueling schedule. While the city woke, mother and daughter baked side by side, Sophia chattering about school or her latest idea for a new dessert. Today, she rambled about her dream to be a chef, her voice bright with certainty. "I'm gonna have a bakery like you, Mama, but with a whole wall of cupcakes." Elena laughed, ruffling Sophia's hair. "You'll put me out of business, little one." But beneath the warmth, a shadow lingered. Elena's husband, Daniel, 40, was already gone, summoned before dawn to Sterling Properties, the real estate empire owned by his mother, Vivian Sterling. As sales director, Daniel's days were consumed by high-stakes deals, his phone buzzing with clients even on weekends. Holidays meant nothing to his workload, or to Vivian, whose icy disapproval had haunted Elena since the day they met. A baker from the barrio, Vivian had sneered when Daniel proposed 12 years ago. To her, CEO of Sterling and a titan of Chicago's elite, Elena's humble roots were a stain on the family's polished legacy. Elena pushed the thought away, shaping dough into neat rows of pan dulce. The bakery's success was her shield, proof she'd risen above Vivian's scorn. Just last month, the Tribune feature had brought new faces to Sabor Dulce, their eager chatter filling the shop as they snapped photos of her pastelitos. Yet, with Thanksgiving 2 days away, a knot tightened in Elena's stomach. Vivian's invitation to the Sterling family dinner felt less like a gesture of goodwill and more like a summons to judgment. "Mama, do you think Grandma will like my new dress?" Sophia asked, wiping flour from her cheek. She'd picked a burgundy dress for the occasion, its velvet skirt perfect for twirling. Elena forced a smile, her heart aching at Sophia's hope. "She'll love it, Mija," she lied, her voice steady. Sophia's belief in family unity was a fragile flame, one Elena couldn't bear to snuff out. But she knew the truth. Vivian's kindness was a performance, her warmth reserved for those she deemed worthy. The bell above the door chimed, and Maria, a young staff member, poked her head in. "Elena, we're swamped already. Sold out of churros in 30 minutes. Her grin was infectious, and Elena felt a surge of pride. "Keep him coming, Maria," she called, sliding a tray into the oven. The bakery's rise was a dream she'd never dared imagine as a girl in Pilsen, where success felt like a distant star. Now, it was real, tangible in every buttery empanada, every glowing review. As Sophia hummed, decorating another cupcake, Elena glanced out the window. Pedestrians hurried past, their breath visible in the cold. The city was waking, its pulse quickening with the approach of the holidays. But for Elena, the season brought a quiet dread. Vivian's mansion in Lake Forest, with its marble floors and glittering chandeliers, was a world apart from Division Street. Every visit was a test, a reminder of her place in Vivian's eyes. Last year, at a Sterling charity gala, Vivian had introduced Elena as Daniel's little hobby, her smile sharp as a blade. The memory stung, but Elena had swallowed it, for Daniel's sake and Sophia's. Now, Sophia's words echoed, "I want Grandma to like us." Elena's fingers paused on the dough, her jaw tightening. She'd endured Vivian's barbs for years, but Sophia's innocence was sacred. Could she protect her daughter's heart without shattering her hope? Daniel's voice broke her thoughts, a text lighting up her phone. Meeting ran late. Home by noon. Love you. Elena sighed, picturing him in his sleek office, tie loosened, eyes tired. His loyalty to her and Sophia was unwavering, but his mother's shadow loomed over them all. She typed a quick reply, then turned to Sophia, who was now dusting cupcakes with edible glitter. "Ready to make some flan for Thanksgiving?" Elena asked, her tone bright. Sophia nodded eagerly, unaware of the storm brewing in her mother's heart. As they measured cream and sugar, Elena's mind churned. She'd bring her best flan to the Sterling dinner, not for Vivian's approval, but for her own pride. It was a small act of defiance, a reminder that her craft, her life, was enough. Yet, deep down, she knew the real battle wasn't about dessert. It was about shielding Sophia from a woman who saw them as less, and proving, somehow, that love could outshine hate. The oven pinged, and Elena pulled out a tray of golden pan dulce, their warmth a fleeting comfort. Outside, Chicago stirred, its streets alive with promise and peril. For Elena, the day was just beginning, but the fight for her family's dignity was already underway. Thanksgiving morning broke with a biting chill in Chicago, the sky a pale gray over the affluent enclave of Lake Forest. Elena Martinez, 38, stood in the kitchen of Sabor Dulce, her bakery on Division Street, putting the final touches on a flan that gleamed like amber. Its caramel glaze was flawless, a testament to her skill, but her hands trembled slightly as she packed it for the Sterling family dinner. Today wasn't just a holiday, it was a gauntlet. Vivian Sterling, her mother-in-law and CEO of Sterling Properties, had invited them to her mansion, a gesture laced with unspoken judgment. Elena adjusted her navy dress, simple yet elegant, chosen to deflect Vivian's inevitable scrutiny. Her daughter, Sophia, 10, twirled nearby in a burgundy velvet dress, her black curls tied with a satin ribbon. "Mama, is my braid okay?" Sophia asked, her voice a mix of excitement and nerves. Elena knelt, smoothing a stray curl. "You're perfect, Mija," she said, her smile masking the dread coiling in her chest. Sophia's hope to win her grandmother's affection was a fragile thread, one Elena feared would snap. Daniel, 40, loaded the car, his jaw tight. As sales director at Sterling Properties, he was used to his mother's demands, but today's tension was personal. His gray suit was crisp, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion, the weight of balancing family and Vivian's empire. "Ready?" he asked, his voice low. Elena nodded, clutching the flan like a shield. The drive to Lake Forest was silent, save for Sophia's soft humming in the back seat, her small hands clutching a drawing she'd made for her grandparents, a bakery scene with stick-figure versions of their family, smiling under a rainbow. The Sterling mansion loomed ahead, its red brick facade and arched windows radiating old-money grandeur. Luxury cars, Porsches, Teslas, a Bentley lined the driveway, their polished surfaces glinting in the winter sun. Inside, the air was warm, scented with roasting turkey and sage. Chandeliers cast golden light across a spacious hall, where relatives mingled in designer dresses and tailored suits. Elena's dress felt painfully out of place, but she squared her shoulders, her pride as a chef anchoring her. Henry, Daniel's father, greeted them with a warm hug, his gray hair and kind eyes a stark contrast to Vivian's cold aura. "Elena, that flan looks incredible," he said, his smile genuine. He knelt to Sophia. "You've grown, little chef." Sophia beamed, her nerves easing as she joined her cousins, a gaggle of kids chasing each other near the grand staircase. Daniel's hand brushed Elena's, a quiet reassurance, but his grip was tense, his gaze darting toward the staircase where Vivian would soon appear. The dining hall was a vision of opulence, a long mahogany table set with heirloom silverware, delicate china, and crystal glasses that caught the chandelier's glow. A massive turkey, golden and fragrant, anchored the spread, flanked by cornbread stuffing, cranberry relish, and sweet potato casserole. Elena's flan sat on the dessert cart, its elegance holding its own beside pumpkin and pecan pies. For a moment, the scene felt almost welcoming, the chatter of relatives a soft hum. Sophia giggled with her cousins, her drawing proudly displayed on her chair. Then came the sharp click of heels. Vivian descended, her crimson gown clinging to her frame, a diamond necklace glittering at her throat. Her smile was perfect, practiced, but her green eyes held a glint of malice. "Elena, how quaint your dress is," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Elena nodded curtly, years of experience decoding Vivian's barbs. The maids paused, their eyes flickering with unease, as relatives shifted uncomfortably. "Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated," the butler announced. The family, some 20 members, from aunts to distant cousins, moved to their place cards. Elena guided Sophia to their seats, her heart steadying at the sight of her daughter's excitement. But as they reached Sophia's chair, Elena froze. Where fine china should have been was a cheap plastic plate, smeared with cold, gray gruel. Scrawled in Sharpie across it were the words, "Charity Case." The room fell silent. A cousin gasped. An uncle coughed, eyes averted. Sophia's small hand tightened on Elena's, her brown eyes wide with confusion, then hurt. Tears welled, her lips trembling. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking. Elena's blood roared in her ears, rage and heartbreak colliding. Daniel's chair scraped back, his face a mask of fury. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice shaking with barely contained anger. Vivian raised a glass, her smile razor-sharp. "Why waste fine china on someone who'll never belong?" Her words sliced through the room, deliberate and cruel. A maid dropped a tray, the crash echoing in the stunned silence. Henry's face paled, his fork clattering to his plate. Sophia's cousins stared, some with pity, others with discomfort. Elena's vision narrowed, her pulse pounding. She knelt beside Sophia, shielding her from the room's gaze. "We're leaving," she said, her voice steady despite the storm within. Sophia's drawing fell to the floor, its cheerful colors stark against the marble. Elena took her daughter's trembling hand, leading her toward the exit. Daniel followed, his breath ragged, his eyes burning with betrayal. The heavy oak door slammed behind them, the cold air biting their cheeks as they reached the car. Sophia's sobs broke free, muffled against Elena's chest as she buckled her in. "Why does Grandma hate me?" she cried, her small body shaking. Elena had no answer, only a fierce resolve hardening in her heart. As Daniel drove, the mansion's lights faded in the rearview mirror, but the wound of Vivian's cruelty lingered, sharp and raw. This wasn't just an insult, it was a declaration of war. Elena glanced at Sophia, curled in the back seat, and made a silent vow. She would protect her daughter, not with anger, but with a strength Vivian could never break. The warmth of Sabor Dulce enveloped Elena Martinez as she and Sophia returned home, but the glow of the bakery's string lights couldn't pierce the chill left by Vivian Sterling's cruelty. Chicago's Division Street buzzed with late Thanksgiving shoppers, their laughter a cruel contrast to the silence in Elena's heart. Inside their apartment above the bakery, the scent of cinnamon and vanilla lingered, but the air felt heavy, tainted by the memory of Sophia's tear-streaked face. Elena, 38, knelt beside her 10-year-old daughter, gently untying the ribbon from her burgundy dress. Sophia's eyes, red from crying, stared at the floor, her small hands clutching the crumpled drawing she'd made for her grandparents. "Why does Grandma hate me, Mama?" Sophia whispered, her voice fragile. Elena's throat tightened, rage and sorrow warring within her. She cupped Sophia's face, her thumbs brushing away fresh tears. "You are perfect, Mija. She's the one who's broken, not you." Sophia's lips quivered into a faint smile, but the hurt lingered, a wound Elena felt as if it were her own. As she ran a warm bath, helping Sophia out of her dress, Elena's mind churned. Vivian's act, placing a plastic plate of gruel-labeled charity case at Sophia's seat, wasn't just a slight. It was a calculated assault on their dignity. For years, Elena had endured Vivian's barbs, swallowing her pride for Daniel and Sophia. But this was different. This was war. Daniel, 40, paced the living room, his phone buzzing with unread messages from colleagues at Sterling Properties. His gray suit jacket was slung over a chair, his tie loosened, revealing the strain of the day. "She's gone too far," he growled, his voice low but searing. He stopped, meeting Elena's gaze, his brown eyes blazing with a fury she'd rarely seen. I'm done with her. Elena nodded, her resolve mirroring his. She guided Sophia to the bathroom, the steam rising as she gently washed her daughter's back. Sophia's silence squeezed Elena's heart, each quiet moment a reminder of the innocence Vivian had tried to crush. Back in the living room, Elena found Daniel on the phone, his tone sharp. You humiliated my daughter, Mother. We're done. Vivian's voice crackled through the speaker, dripping with arrogance. You'll regret defying me, Daniel. You need Sterling. He hung up, his hand trembling, and turned to Elena. I'm quitting. I'll start my own firm. She doesn't control us anymore. His words were a spark, igniting a plan in Elena's mind. She'd heard whispers of Vivian's shady dealings, personal expenses billed to the company, unfair firings of minority staff, promotions skewed toward her inner circle. If we expose her, it's not revenge, Elena said, her voice steady. It's justice. Daniel's eyes widened, then narrowed with determination. You're right. Let's do this. They sat at the kitchen table, the flan untouched in its dish, and began strategizing. Elena recalled a former Sterling employee, Carla, who'd been pushed out for questioning Vivian's ethics. Carla might know something, Elena said, pulling out her phone. Daniel nodded, already texting Tom, his trusted deputy at Sterling. Tom's fed up with her too. He'll help. The plan took shape: gather evidence, find allies, and bring Vivian's misdeeds to light, legally, methodically, undeniably. Elena tucked Sophia into bed, reading her favorite story about a brave girl who tamed a dragon. Sophia's eyelids drooped, her breathing steadying, but traces of tears lingered on her cheeks. I'm sorry, Mama, she murmured, half asleep. Elena's heart clenched. You've done nothing wrong, she whispered, kissing Sophia's forehead. As she closed the door, a fire burned within her. Sophia's pain was the fuel, her hope the flame. Elena would fight, not with fists, but with truth. Back downstairs, Daniel was on another call, his voice low but urgent. Tom, I need you to pull records, expense reports, anything suspicious. He hung up, his jaw set. Tom's in. He says half the sales team is ready to walk if I do. Elena's mind raced. She remembered a Chicago Tribune journalist, Maya, who'd covered Sabor Dulce's rise. Maya had a reputation for exposing corporate corruption. I'll reach out to Maya, Elena said, her fingers already typing a message. Anonymously, for now. The night stretched on, the couple working in tandem. Elena sifted through old emails from Sterling events, spotting clues, lavish parties billed as client meetings, a private jet used for Vivian's Miami getaways. Daniel compiled names of disgruntled employees, each a potential whistleblower. The stakes were high. Vivian's influence ran deep in Chicago's elite circles. But Elena felt a shift within her, a clarity born of pain. She wasn't just a baker from Pilsen anymore. She was a mother, a wife, a warrior. As dawn broke, painting the skyline in hues of pink, Elena paused to make coffee, the familiar ritual grounding her. Daniel slumped on the couch, exhaustion etched into his face, but his eyes held a spark of hope. We can do this, Elena, he said, squeezing her hand. She squeezed back, her resolve ironclad. Outside, Chicago stirred, its pulse quickening with the promise of a new day. For Elena, it was more than a sunrise, it was the dawn of a fight she was ready to win. The Chicago wind howled outside Sabor Dulce, rattling the bakery's windows as Elena Martinez, 38, sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of printed emails and expense reports. It was 3 days after the Thanksgiving disaster, and the sting of Vivian Sterling's cruelty, humiliating Sophia with a plastic plate of gruel labeled charity case, still burned. But Elena's grief had hardened into resolve. She and Daniel, 40, were no longer victims. They were architects of justice, building a case to expose Vivian's corruption at Sterling Properties. The clock read 2 a.m., but sleep was a luxury they couldn't afford. Elena sipped coffee, her eyes scanning a document from Carla, a former Sterling employee who'd been fired for questioning Vivian's ethics. The email detailed a $300,000 consulting fee paid to a shell company owned by Vivian's cousin, with no record of services rendered. This is it, Elena whispered, circling the figure. Daniel, hunched over his laptop, nodded. Tom's got more, $1.2 million in personal charges, including a yacht renovation build as office upgrades. Tom, Daniel's deputy, had smuggled records from Sterling's servers, risking his job to join their costs. Their plan was precise: compile evidence, feed it anonymously to Maya, a Chicago Tribune journalist, and let the truth dismantle Vivian's empire. Elena's outreach to Maya had been cautious. A burner email with a teaser. Sterling Properties CEO is bleeding the company dry. Interested? Maya's reply was swift. Send proof. I'll protect your identity. Now, every document Elena and Daniel gathered was a brick in the wall of Vivian's downfall. They'd also contacted other whistleblowers, former accountants, assistants, even a driver who'd overheard Vivian's shady deals. Daniel's resignation from Sterling had sent shockwaves through the company. That morning, he'd walked into the glass-walled headquarters, his letter of resignation in hand. I'm done, he told Vivian, his voice cold. By noon, half the sales team, Tom, Sarah, and 8 others, had followed, citing Vivian's toxic leadership. Clients, loyal to Daniel's charisma and integrity, demanded contract reviews, threatening to pull millions in deals. Sterling's stock dipped 10% in a day, whispers of instability rippling through Chicago's business elite. Elena felt the weight of their gamble. If they failed, Vivian's wrath could crush them financially, socially, even legally. But Sophia's tearful question, "Why does Grandma hate me?" echoed in her mind, fueling her. That evening, Elena had taken Sophia to the bakery, teaching her to pipe frosting on cupcakes. Sophia's laughter, tentative but real, was a reminder of what they were fighting for. "Mama, are we going to be okay?" Sophia asked, her brown eyes searching. Elena hugged her tight. "Better than okay, Mija. We're unstoppable." The Tribune article dropped at 6 a.m. on Monday. A bombshell splashed across the front page. Sterling Properties CEO accused of embezzlement, discrimination. Maya's report was meticulous, citing $1.5 million in misappropriated funds, private jet trips, a Miami condo renovation, lavish parties, all charged to Sterling. It exposed Vivian's discriminatory practices. Minority employees passed over for promotions, women harassed, and whistleblowers fired. Anonymous testimonies, backed by leaked receipts, painted a damning portrait. The SEC announced an investigation by noon. Chicago buzzed with the scandal. Social media erupted, hashtags like #SterlingScandal trending. At Sabor Dulce, customers whispered over their empanadas, some offering Elena knowing nods. "You're behind this, aren't you?" Maria, her staff member, teased. Elena just smiled, her heart pounding with cautious triumph. But the real test came at Sterling's headquarters. Daniel's phone lit up with texts from colleagues, boards in chaos. Vivian's losing it. At an emergency board meeting, Vivian faced a reckoning. Her crimson lipstick was perfect, her designer suit immaculate, but her hands shook as she addressed the room. "These are lies," she snapped, her voice shrill. But the evidence was ironclad. Henry, Daniel's father, usually a quiet presence, stood, his face etched with resolve. "Vivian, you're out," he said, his voice steady. "Your actions have nearly destroyed us." The board voted unanimously. Vivian was stripped of her CEO title and ousted from management. Security escorted her from her office, her heels clicking hollowly on the marble floor. Meanwhile, Daniel's new firm, Martinez Realty, gained momentum. A $75 million waterfront development deal with Horizon Group, a major client who ditched Sterling, cemented its rise. Elena's bakery thrived, the Tribune story drawing crowds who saw her as a symbol of resilience. Sophia, now smiling more, helped in the kitchen, her confidence slowly returning. One evening, she hugged Elena, whispering, "You're my hero, Mama." Elena's eyes stung, her purpose clear. As snow dusted Division Street, Elena and Daniel sat in their apartment, the city skyline twinkling beyond. The fight wasn't over. Vivian might retaliate, and the SEC probe loomed, but they'd struck a blow for justice. Elena squeezed Daniel's hand, her heart steady. They weren't just surviving, they were rewriting their story, one truth at a time. Snow fell softly over Chicago, blanketing Division Street in a quiet hush as December's chill settled in. Inside Sabor Dulce, Elena Martinez, 38, kneaded dough for buñuelos, the bakery alive with the scent of frying dough and cinnamon sugar. The shop buzzed with holiday shoppers, their chatter mingling with the jingle of the bell above the door. A month had passed since Vivian Sterling's downfall, and the wounds of Thanksgiving, when Vivian humiliated Sophia with a plastic plate of gruel labeled charity case, were beginning to heal. Elena's fight for justice had reshaped their world, and now, in the glow of Christmas lights, hope flickered like a candle. Sophia, 11, darted through the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour. She led a kids' baking class, teaching her friends to pipe frosting on gingerbread cookies. Her laughter, once dimmed by Vivian's cruelty, rang out clear and bright. "Mama, look at mine," she called, holding up a cookie shaped like a star, its icing a swirl of red and green. Elena's heart swelled. "You're a natural, Mija," she said, ruffling Sophia's curls. The Chicago Tribune had named Sabor Dulce a Chicago treasure, praising Elena's resilience and her fusion of Mexican and American flavors. The article drew crowds, their lines spilling onto the sidewalk for her panettone and tamales. Upstairs, Daniel, 40, pored over contracts for Martinez Realty, his new firm. The $75 million waterfront deal with Horizon Group had catapulted them into the spotlight, and industry buzz hailed Daniel as a visionary. Half of Sterling Properties' sales team had joined him, their loyalty a rebuke to Vivian's tyranny. The office, a sleek space in the Loop, hummed with energy, young talent pitching ideas and a culture free of Vivian's elitism. Elena marveled at Daniel's transformation, from a man chained to his mother's empire to a leader forging his own path. The Sterling scandal still rippled through Chicago. Vivian's ouster as CEO, driven by the Tribune expose of her $1.5 million in embezzled funds and discriminatory practices, had shaken the city's elite. The SEC investigation deepened, with whistleblowers revealing more: rigged contracts, harassment of minority staff, and a $500,000 donation to a politician for zoning favors. Sterling stock had plummeted 25%, and clients fled to competitors. Henry, Daniel's father, had taken the helm, vowing reform. At a packed employee meeting, he announced transparent promotions, diversity training, and a fund for wrongfully fired staff. Applause echoed, a sign of renewal. Elena and Daniel's victory was hard-won but lawful, built on evidence and truth. Yet, as Elena decorated a Yule log cake, she felt a pang of unease. Vivian's silence since her exile to an Evanston condo was unnerving. Would she lash out? The thought faded as Sophia hugged her, whispering, "I'm proud of you, Mama." Elena kissed her forehead, her resolve firm. They'd faced Vivian's worst and emerged stronger. A surprise came one frosty Sunday when Henry arrived at Sabor Dulce, his gray coat dusted with snow. He carried a gift for Sophia, a chef's apron embroidered with her name in gold thread. "I'm sorry I didn't stop Vivian sooner," he said, his voice thick with regret. Sophia hugged him, her smile radiant. "It's okay, Grandpa. We're family now." Over brunch, Henry shared a bold proposal: a merger between Sterling Properties and Martinez Realty. "Together, we can rebuild what Vivian broke," he said, his eyes on Daniel. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "For a new legacy, Dad." The merger sent shockwaves through the industry. Turner and Martinez Properties, a name blending their family's past and future, promised ethical development and community focus. A $100 million mixed-use project, with affordable housing, sealed its debut. Industry papers lauded the father-son duo, their story of reconciliation and reform captivating Chicago. Elena, once an outsider, was now a quiet force behind their vision, her strength anchoring the family. Vivian, meanwhile, faded into obscurity. Neighbors in Evanston saw her in her condo, staring out a window, a wine glass in hand. Her designer wardrobe was sold to pay legal fees, her socialite friends gone. The Tribune ran a follow-up, From Power to Pariah, Vivian Sterling's Fall. It described her isolation, a stark contrast to her former glory. Elena sometimes wondered about her, pity flickering but not softening her resolve. Vivian's choices had built her prison. As Christmas neared, Sabor Dulce glowed with warmth. Sophia baked a cake for Henry, her confidence blooming. Elena and Daniel's bond deepened, forged in crisis. One evening, as they hung ornaments, Sophia asked, "Mama, we're stronger now, right?" Elena smiled, her hand steady. "Stronger than ever, Mija." Outside, Chicago's skyline sparkled, its lights a promise of new beginnings. Elena kneaded dough, Sophia at her side, their laughter a quiet triumph over pain.